I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name. Check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change. Possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy, think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen. I won't let them fester me, I know most are festering. Negativity is a plague for the mentally weak. No mercy, all I got is working. Never stop searching, never quench the thirsty. I'm toxic and psychotic, with this logic you can't stop it. It's been chronic since I was a boy, so neurotic and chaotic.
I'm built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the cast, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grieving. Put your foot on the gas, no, never stop competing, yeah.
I've been doing this, I'm on it, I just wanna be iconic. Sipping on a gin and tonic, got me going off when I'm on this topic, yeah. If I ever play, I want it, you know that I'm always honest. Stay away from those who are toxic, keep them out your face, no way, you don't want them, yeah. Don't try to drain my energy, the enemy is everything. It's mentally, unhealthily, spreading like a rare disease. But I won't let it get to me, I don't need your therapy. I can leave a legacy of leading by intensity. Come on, we can fight this, freedom is priceless. Spread just like a virus, living in a crisis. Do you feel courageous? Do you seek greatness? Trust me, you can take it, go on and take your aim, yeah.
I'm built to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the gas, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grieving. Put your foot on the gas, no, never stop competing, yeah.
I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns sour with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's your loss, see. I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python, grab what I like real fast. Choke until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see, matter of fact.
Cause I'm my own worst enemy. Only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed, and everything I do the best. And deep within my mind, you know I'll always manifest it.
Hello and welcome to my Mind Over Your Matter. My name is Rick, and let's get this show started. Oh man, today's just I guess I'm a vent today. I'm gonna release all the energy that I have on my mind, um, and it just makes me more mad. And you won't like me while I'm mad. It's just not a good thing, especially what's going on within our administration here. Um, it's disturbing, but Trump says nobody cares about him, and that person, him, is Jeffrey Epstein. I say, what about the children, President Trump? What happened? All those innocent children that got harmed and trafficked. We're not going to do anything about that. No one's going to see any consequences of that. Gives me thoughts, right? This is a psychic mind. My name is Rick, and yeah, I am a psychic medium, empath, and I hear things, see things, and I just relay things. My problem is they're covering up this Epstein problem, the Lolita Express problem. What was the last problem that they had that they covered up? Oh, that's right, Pizzagate. Oh, nobody wants to talk about Pizzagate now because real quick they're gonna come and take down your channel. I really don't care anymore at this point. What is the truth anymore? Do we actually even believe in the truth? No. Do we believe in the children that was harmed? No. Are there going to be any justice for these children? No. A lot of powerful men and women took part on both Pizzagate and Lolita Express, and yet they don't even get the they don't even get any consequences, no punishment, no nothing, no justice, nothing for the kids. The kids are just collateral. That's all they are. Collateral damage. Just sweep them under the rug and that's it. It's over. But something's really disturbing and disgusting is going on in Washington, D.C., and it has to do with the innocent children. Like, why they're putting so much emphasis into protecting the innocent children on the videos, but yet, who are they really protecting? Are they really protecting the children? Or are they really protecting the individuals that are doing things to the children? Makes you think. Where's the videos? Who is in these videos? It's not just Epstein in all the videos, and that's all you're getting. Epstein and a whole bunch of children. That's all you're getting. Like, no. I don't believe it. There's others that are in these videos that are very powerful men, very powerful individuals that are really good friends with President Trump. And we need to weed these people out and get them and get the justice that we so deserve for these children that probably 9 out of 10 are not with us. Okay. Because very disgusting things and horrific things happen on that island, and not only on the island, but on the jet over to that island. And there's so many witnesses, there's so many stories, and yet all of it is suppressed. Huh. It makes you wonder, decades upon decades of this activity happening, nothing to see here. Just like the Diddy, nothing to see here. Like the Jay-Z also, nothing to see here. It's so funny how these powerful men and women could just get away with it. And it seems like the more money and power they have, is the more easier it is for them to get away with horrible, horrific crimes. Um, but my question is, why President Trump isn't helping the issue? How come he's doubling down, tripling down on nothing happened? Epstein was just a bad man, and that's all we get. That's the justice we get. He's a bad man, and why are we still talking about him? The same question I say, then why are we still talking about 2020 elections? Why are we we're still talking about that? Why are we still talking about a whole bunch of stuff from the past that we still haven't had gotten any answers, like the JFK and Martin Luther King and all the others that stories that are getting suppressed and hidden and just put in the cave, in the back cave, for no light to see. Like, you won't be able to see anything because it's so dark and they don't want you to see, which is the biggest problem. It makes me question why Trump is protecting those who harm the very innocent young children. Like, why is he protecting these individuals? Why is he not standing up for children? Is my biggest concern about our president right now. It makes me sad because, like, I voted for this guy, right? And I know he has good intentions. I know he has a good train of thought, a thousand times better than Kamala Harris, that's for sure. But my biggest problems is his handlers. His handlers are manipulating and putting their fingers and pretty much directing what Trump says and does. And he has his writers, he has his screenwriters, and people have to approve before President Trump speaks of certain things. So that's why he's like, he has to stick to the notes. He has to read the teleprompter because that's written for him to say. He is a puppet. All presidents are puppets. There has not been a president that actually stood up for us in a very, very long time. The last time someone like that tried to stand up for us, he almost ended up dead, and that's President Reagan. And he had his fair share of controversies also. But I feel like Trump is a part of the problem because he's covering up for his friends and his business partners who allegedly was involved in the Pizzagate and also the Lolita Express. Yep, Trump is covering for them. And I think this goes further deep than Pat Bondi. And yes, they're trying to get Pat Bondi out of the DOJ. They're trying to, I think she's a fall guy. She's just, how they say it, dumb blonde bimbo. That just, it's just there. And she's like a statue. Like, just stay right there. Do a good job. Just stay there. No. I think the biggest problem, it comes to the top and it comes to the head, President Trump. He, like I said, he knows more than what he says, and he doesn't want to incriminate himself nor his friends or business partners. And it's not a good thing. And, you're getting oh man, I'm just so overwhelmed with so much hate for what's going on because they're trying to brush it and trying to deflect and not put anyone into some form of justice. No one's getting justice, not even the children. It's what's my biggest concern is the children, because these children now are adults. Now, where are these young adults? Where are these adults at? Some of them have been coming up and speaking and so forth, but the amount of people that are coming up to speak is nothing compared to the amount of children that was trafficked there. Nothing. And the fact that a lot of these children that got R-worded and a lot of things done to them, I guarantee you they're not alive. They're not alive and they're not with us right now. And that's a huge, huge problem, huge red flag. And our president here, he could give a shit about it. He doesn't care. And as long as he doesn't care, they're going to continue brushing this and keep covering it up. I say this. If the American people really want to protest about something and have something like that we could all fall together and come to agreement together, is getting the answers for these children, standing up against like these presidents for covering up these stories, and like Pizzagate. We never got any answers, true answers on that. And it was truly brushed under the rug. And they're trying to do the same thing with the Epstein. They're doing the same thing with the Diddy. They will do the same thing with Jay-Z. They will do the same for every other one of these powerful individuals that have lots of connections and lots of money, and a lot of people that were involved in these crimes. Well, guess what? There's no penalty for them. They will get away with it. And that's where the biggest problem that we have here in America. There's no accountability. There's no justice. And when you have no justice, you have no peace. And I think we need to get back on the ball. We need accountability. We need to make accountability great again. And that's the real MAGA. It's not America, make America great again. America was already fucking great, and it's always going to be great no matter what. We need to bring back accountability. We need these individuals that took part in this horrendous, disgusting crimes to justice. But since they're Trump's friends and, you know, they're buddies, they're gonna protect their friends. They're gonna like not get them in trouble. And if they do get in trouble, they'll find a way to get them out of trouble. It's just disgusting. I do have some news to go over and for us to watch together. I think we should do that. But I think this Epstein backlash is not going to stop. I am not going to rest on it. They could come and terminate my channel, and that's okay because I'll develop another one and I'll continue talking about the same issues, because you can only silence me for so long, but you cannot, you can't, unless I'm 6 feet under. And guess what? I'll come from the grave and I'll hunt the shit out of those who harm those children, because this is, from what I see, the visions that I see and everything that went down, this is really, really, truly disgusting and truly bad. And yet there's no one getting in trouble for it. The list is real. The people that went to this island is real. Many, 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 we're talking about thousands upon thousands of individuals have been to this island and had their little orgies and had their fun, and little ones were involved. So sad. It's so disgusting. This was today. Actually, this show is going to be my only upload for the day, so enjoy it. Tonight I'll be watching a WWE event, Evolution 2. So I will not be broadcasting anything for tonight, and it's Sunday, so it's need a break from time to time, but I still try to push as much as I can. Let's go ahead and get this story up here. I wish I had it ready for you guys, but I was kind of like rushing it here. So give me a second to open it up.
And now to another big story. The president is defending U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi her and FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino are reportedly at odds over the handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files.
Chanley Painter joining us now with the details on that story. Hey, Chanley.
Hey, Kevin, Rachel, and Charlie. So the president is stepping in to defend his attorney general, Pam Bondi, as doing, quote, a fantastic job after she came under fire from some Trump supporters over the Department of Justice's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. The president posting this in part, quote, 1 year ago, our country was dead. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. Let's keep it that way and not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about. The president's post coming after some Trump supporters criticized Bondi or even called for her resignation after the DOJ and the FBI on Sunday released a joint 2-page statement on the Epstein case that concluded there was no celebrity client list, naming those who allegedly took part in Epstein's history as a sexual predator.
That's bullshit. That's a lie.
Bondi had indicated that such a document was sitting on her desk. The DOJ also concluded that Epstein did commit suicide in a New York City jail cell in 2019 while awaiting further sex trafficking charges. Yet a missing minute in the jail video that was released has only spurred conspiracy theorists. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino reportedly clashed with Bondi over her handling of the Epstein matter last week and has told confidants that he may actually resign if Bondi remains in her post. Guys, we shall see.
Thank you, Chanley.
Thanks, Chanley.
You know, obviously there are lots and lots of questions that have been swirling about Jeffrey Epstein for a long time, for over 10 years, and the government's involvement in it. If there's anybody who could walk in and say, okay, we've resolved all of the questions and there is nothing here, it would be President Trump and his crew. The problem is you can't really do it without giving some explanation, and there has to be some explanation. And I think that's why you have a lot of people still pretty with a lot of very valid questions about it.
You absolutely nailed it. You can defuse this ticking time bomb if you simply get out there, sit down, the AG, get the deputy director, and get the director himself. Put them in front of cameras, have them make a statement, and have them answer questions. We're only talking about 5 or 10 questions. But what this will do is, first of all, restores confidence. Number 2, it answers some of the basics, especially the simple things like, you can't tell me that 1,000 people were hurt and that there are no people out there that we can arrest. You can't tell me that, sorry, we don't have a list. Fine, don't have a list. Tell me who the perpetrators were. Let's depose every single person who might have had a chance to get on that list and might have been out there at that island. And let's
on the video.
Let's find out what happened.
The people on the video.
The videos out there in New Mexico and at the island and in New York, and nobody saw anything. I don't buy it, and that's why they need to get out there and face the fire. Doesn't have to be long, but you have to answer questions to the American people, because absent that, the story won't die, and that's a distraction the president doesn't want.
Of course, and in that True Social that he put out, he talked about all his accomplishments.
Yeah.
And he's saying, why let's not let this overcome. And I think he doesn't want that. I think his supporters don't want that. And I think that's why they want just some simple answers.
Yeah. And of course, he's right about that. I mean,
there's no question.
None of this mars any of the extraordinary accomplishments. And we want to keep going.
That's right.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our...
Not talk about it. Everything's all... Something's not right. When something smells, like I said, when something smells like shit, it's shit. So let's watch the Benny Johnson show real quick.
Oh, APL. I don't even know where to begin. How pleased are you with how the Department of Justice is handling this Epstein case?
Look, Benny, you know that I've been the chairwoman of the Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets, and I did everything that I could do in my legislative ability and capacity to try to obtain any information. And as you know, we are basically ignored by the DOJ, but this kind of signifies a bigger problem here, in that if there's not anything that comes out, and there's plenty of things that the DOJ and the Attorney General can authorize Kash Patel and Dan Bongino to release that doesn't implicate victims, that doesn't have CSAM on it, I would say that they need to release some information, because at the end of the day, what this is going to do is, once it fractures the trust, it can really fracture the base. And what I'm finding is that, if you look back historically on times that the American people did not trust their government, it really goes back to Kennedy, right? And you know that we just had a groundbreaking discovery on Friday. We had the CIA divulge some incredible things called the Joe and Edie's files that ultimately answered many questions, really confirmed a lot of suspicions that the American people had for decades, but now we have proof that Oswald was not a lone gunman. The CIA observed them the whole time. They lied to Congress. I mean, you name it, we got it in this file dump. And so kudos to Director Radcliffe. But what happened, and you saw my public statement that's been out there, is that, we're going to ask the DOJ, we're going to ask for the FBI to be able to release that information to the American people. We want to see it. We haven't been able to see anything else other than what's publicly out there already. But it needs to be resolved. And I will just say that the American people want truth and transparency, no matter who it implicates, and I think that they deserve that.
So we bring this up. It's easy, the pen is mightier than the sword, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. So let's just look at just a few pictures here. This is an article that was just published in the Daily Mail. These are the federal government's own photographs, and this is the descriptions by their own special agent in charge for the FBI. And you have boxes, mountains, in fact, of evidence that is everything from cookbooks to photographs. There's a photograph there that's blacked out, APL. I wonder what that is. Nobody knows where the Bill Clinton oil painting is. Like, you could just tell us these things. Here is a safe. In this safe, according to the FBI, there is a manila envelope. You can see it right there. That's filled with passports from different countries where Jeffrey Epstein uses pseudonyms. How the hell do you get a pseudonym on a foreign nation's passport? I don't know. It'd be nice to see that. A bag of diamonds. That's what's in that little box right there. None of this stuff is CSAM. None of this stuff is predator material. Stop acting. What makes me so angry, Congresswoman, is that they're acting like we're perverts for wanting to see this stuff, or that like we want to see abuse material. We don't. We want to see all of the mountain of evidence that you're hoarding that would put together a more full picture of what the hell this guy was doing, so that we can confirm that we're not paying taxes to a predator cult. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those are all valid concerns. I have the same concerns. To go a step further, though, there has to be something that comes out, because there's so much conflicting information spanning over the last, decade, since this really happened in Florida back when it did. There's so much information that different administrations, different law enforcement, different officials have put out. And so there really has to be some credibility to this. This cannot just blow past. There needs to be an official, I would say a legitimate investigation. I think a special counsel would be good to look into this, but either which way, it doesn't make my job any easier. We've been pushing for this for a long time, and it's really disappointing.
So would you be in favor of a special counsel to be set up that perhaps could look at the internal corruption at the DOJ and the FBI that we know to be endemic, and perhaps that's what you need, right?
Well, I would say special counsel is what seems to be what the American people are calling for. What I will also tell you, though, Benny, is that, we haven't seen any of this information. I don't know that any member of Congress, at least on my task force, has been able to even look at some of the basics. And so what I would say is that, similar to how it was rolled out with, the JFK files, give information that does not implicate victims, doesn't have CSAM, whether it's passports, whether it's the name of books, whether it's evidence, crime scenes, whatever it might be, put it on the archives and let the American people decide for themselves. That is the only way to, I think, restore trust. And look, I want to believe that there isn't systemic corruption at the DOJ, but unfortunately, I've been in Congress and I've seen how the DOJ operates, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the Attorney General. But what it does necessarily mean is that there's a big problem over there, and that we don't fix it, it's going to unfortunately fester, and it's going to hurt the American people. The American people trust that their government's going to do the right thing. If justice is truly fair and blind, then it needs to happen. And so we'll continue to push for that, release call for it. But it's been deafening how many members of Congress have been silent on this. And to be clear, also, I want to clear something up. I do not think, and I've told this to multiple media outlets because I've been getting questions on this, is Trump on the Epstein client list? No. And I'm very positive of that, because if he was, they would have released it during the election cycle. But what I do know, and what I'm seeing right now across, every aspect, whether it's rich, poor, famous, not famous, people have actual concerns. Are people basically paying off people to be quiet? And that's not okay.
Yeah. Okay. So this raises a pretty massive question, which is you have the authority in Congress, your Article 1, they should be compelled, in fact, to give you this evidence. The fact that they're keeping it from you, and you have clearances, you have SCIFs, the fact that they're keeping it from you, what does that say for the rest of us?
Well, it's very frustrating for us, obviously, but the one thing that I don't have on the task force is subpoena power and authority. And I think when I actually stood up the task force, you kind of saw it. So many people are like, oh, you're never going to release the files. You're going to gatekeep it. You're going to stonewall. It's like, guys, I don't actually control the declassification authority here. It's actually at the Department of Justice, and you're actually seeing that now. And I also need to clear up, because I know Dan and Cash, and I do think that there's information that they can release, but they cannot release any information if they don't receive permission from the DOJ. So there's some information that can be released from what we're hearing. They need to release that. I think to not is detrimental and only making this worse.
I got a curious question for you, which is, this is such a winner with the base, right? Because again, it is totally honorable to not want to pay taxes to a predator cult or people who protect a predator cult, right? So obviously we know that was going on. Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein were found guilty of these crimes. This is not speculation. They were found guilty of these crimes. They were charged and found guilty. Okay, so that's what they are. They're predators. Why are more Republicans not speaking out against this? Well, it seems like such a winning issue.
Benny, I had a bill that I introduced last year. I reintroduced it this year, and it was to increase the mandatory minimums on child predators. And they will never bring that to the floor. They won't even run it through committee. There's a lot of frustrations that I have with my own party, and you've seen that frustration come through, because I do believe that, people look at this as a long-term job. They're worried about re-election. They don't want to do things that are deemed as controversial. But I would say that the bare minimum basics of being a good human being would be to fight against people that are trying to hurt children. And so I would say that, right now would probably be a great time to put that legislation on the floor. But it is pretty interesting how many people have been quiet. And I understand maybe some fears that they might have because of people surrounding this. But what I will say is that, clearly, if you're a parent, clearly, if you are a good person, you want to ensure that people like this aren't just walking the streets and that they're not able to get a free pass. And so what I would say is that, I'm not at the DOJ, unfortunately, and I'm not at the FBI, unfortunately. But what I would say and what I would encourage them to do is do the right thing and release some of the information that doesn't, show children or CSAM to the American people. Let them decide. The American people are not stupid.
Mm-hmm. Final question for you, Congresswoman, because you were critical in getting all these JFK documents out there, and we use that as the gold standard for declass.
Yeah.
And it was a pressure release. People don't understand. It's a pressure release valve for the American people to just say, we trust you. Here's everything. And those documents, by the way, like some people are like, there was nothing in them. They're stupid. You're dumb. You're stupid if you think that.
Yeah,
like
actually, Benny, let me just go through this real quick.
Please.
So we obtained a document actually a couple weeks ago, and we were waiting for the CIA to get it uploaded online so that we could announce it to the American people. So kudos to Director Radcliffe, because there are many documents that previous directors had kept classified, even though there was an order to declassify everything. And because Director Radcliffe has actually assigned a team to us to actually help go through and actually unclassify things that should not have been classified pertaining to the JFK assassination, we've actually been able to obtain stuff. So we actually obtained something called the Joe Neady's file. What this proves is, I think I said this earlier, but that Lee Harvey Oswald was not a lone gunman. In fact, the CIA did have knowledge and was observing him the entire time. Joe Neady's was a covert operator from the CIA who actually used a pseudonym and actually was involved with many anti-Castro movements. He was also in the midst of recruiting people to assassinate Castro. Remember, this is all the CIA operating outside of the purview of JFK at the time. And then we find out I'm looking through the files, and we actually found evidence of basically fake names that Joe Neady's was using as undercover names. So look, it's kind of interesting because we saw what happened with JFK, and we're seeing kind of this same question, and it feels like a similar situation with Epstein. And what I will say is this: if you want to restore faith with the American people, you need to let them decide for themselves. You cannot spoon feed it to them. You cannot hide it from them. And if you give the feeling that you are, no matter what you do after that, it's never going to be the same, because there's still always going to be the level of distrust. And so what I will say is that the way that the classification was run with JFK was flawless. There was evidence in that. I think that right now, there's a couple of outlets that were left-leaning, Benny, that were actually trying to go to my committee and write hit pieces saying that we were pushing conspiracy theories. And then after we actually brought in one of the doctors who was actually at the initial Dallas operating room that actually testified to Congress that there was multiple entry wounds from both the front and the back, they couldn't write the article anymore. And after we actually obtained evidence that said that the CIA themselves did not buy the lone gunman theory, now you're seeing that a CIA operative was actually installed in one of the investigations that Congress was doing, lied to Congress, served as the interface, lied about being undercover, and then was later awarded a medal by the CIA for undermining congressional efforts into JFK. I think that kind of paints a picture of what this government is capable of. But thanks to this administration, thanks to Tulsi Gabbard, thanks to Kash Patel, and to Director Radcliffe, we've been able to roll out this incredibly historical changing information. I don't want the Epstein to put a stain on this, because this administration has been transparent, and we're getting stuff on Martin Luther King and Robert F. Kennedy as well. And we're going to be doing investigations into that. So just remember that there's still a pull for transparency even within the DOJ. But I will continue to encourage and ask on behalf of the American people for the facts to be out there, and I think that they deserve it.
It's the gold standard, and it's been 67 years in the making. Yeah. And no other government has released this. It is a massive goal. It is a massive credit and W for your committee, and also for the Trump administration.
Yeah, it's had President Trump not gotten elected. Because remember, we actually were able to even declassify stuff that Biden had ordered to be declassified that the CIA and the archives would not release. So this is covering down, going back from like Obama, Bush, Clinton, Biden, and now it was Trump's administration that was able to do this.
It's a remarkable feat. It is a testament to what can be done and the model that should be applied here with Epstein. Yeah. Again, I don't know how what happens when you do something like this is you're seen as I think wrongly, right? You and I both know many of these people inside the administration, but you are going to be smeared as protecting the predator. And there's no, he's a dead pedophile. He should have no rights. You should. Am I wrong?
That needs to be a slogan. Dead pedophiles, no rights. I mean, I will get behind that slogan.
Okay. Like, that's not right. Like, what are we protecting here exactly? Right? Like, out with it. Okay. Well, Anna Paulina Luna, obviously you most likely already follow her, but if you're not, you should. She's going to cross 400,000 followers today right here on her official.
And that's so true, like release the information, you got so much information all hit up and eventually it's going to come out. Is this government here is trying to suppress it and hide it, just like the JFK files, just like all the other files that they have, like all the dossiers, and like they don't see the light of day. They get hidden in a tunnel in a secret vote that no one, it will never see the light of day. Like, it's just stupid that our government is protecting the criminals. That's what it is. It doesn't matter if they're dead or alive. They're being protected. And the fact that we just don't give a fuck, and we truly do. And it's trying to show you guys that we do care. We do want to know what the hell is going on, So let me see this next article here. Let me just set it up here so we can watch together. Like I said, I'm watching all this for the first time, like you are with me, and you're getting my what I feel when I watch these type of news and the energy and how I react to it. You're getting it live. I decided to just do it live because I watch a lot of news. I have a lot of time in my hands, and I educate myself to the fullest with multimedia platforms like YouTube, because I don't jump around. That's one thing I don't do. I don't go on X. I don't have no X. I don't have no TikTok-y, whatever you want to call it, TikTok. I don't have it. I don't care for it. I don't get my news from there. I like independent journalists, and I like to feel out the energy from when I hear people. I could tell if they're truthful or not. If they, you know, that they know, you just know when you connect with that person and you just listen and you'll be like, damn, let me form an opinion with him. And sometimes people like to come onto the show and talk about it, and the interaction. And that's all what we need to do. We need to interact more and we need to talk about it. And the more silent we are, the worse it is for society, to be honest. So let's check out this story here. I just want to see what she says here. I got a couple of more opened to watch, so hang in there. We'll get through it.
No, thank you for being here with us.
Absolutely.
It's
very
just heartbreaking
pretty
to hear these stories, and there has been a lot of back and forth about what the federal response was.
Hello,
So I
Albie,
wanted
and
to
hello,
start with
Chloe.
you.
How you guys
Let's separate
doing?
a little fact
Hope
from
you guys are
fiction.
having a good day.
There's this question about whether or not everything that passes through DHS that's $100,000 contract or more has to be personally signed off on by you, because there are questions about whether that may have slowed things. Can you separate fact from fiction for us on that?
That policy absolutely did not slow anything down. In fact, as soon as this flooding started early in the morning, I was on the phone with the lieutenant governor, with the governor, with the emergency responders that were there on the ground, and said, what do you need? And then got on a plane and headed there as soon as I possibly could. So I was there within hours. The Coast Guard had been immediately deployed as soon as we finished our phone calls. We also deployed our border protection Coast Guard, or our CBP and our patrol folks with their BORTAC teams that are specially equipped and trained for these types of situations. And then FEMA had over 700 individuals there helping to serve the community. So within hours they were there. This memo and this criticism, I think, is all politics, because I was there. And every time somebody asked for something, we said, absolutely, it'll be here as soon as possible and it'll be done. And that is what I think is so shameful, is that if you talk to the people on the ground, I've spent hours and hours there now, been there several days. Everybody there is so grateful. They recognize the response was immediate. It's unprecedented how the federal government came in and supported the state in this, and many lives were saved. Unfortunately, the tragedy of this is that so many were lost, and this community has got a long ways to heal, and we need to find these family members and bring them home.
Yes, and that continues around the clock. So this issue, though, of the $100,000, is it accurate to say that that is a policy position now moving forward? Because a Federal News Network went through and they said, based on the last 3 fiscal years data, your office would have to approve more than 5,100 contract actions worth that amount in the federal fourth quarter alone. So is it feasible? Because I know there's a check on wanting to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, but is it feasible for you to even do that personally?
Yeah, well, this is a policy that's wide throughout the Department of Homeland Security for accountability purposes. And every contract has been signed and evaluated immediately and signed off by me. I want that accountability in place because it's the taxpayer dollars, and we need to know that when those dollars are going out to help communities, it's actually getting there. You all know FEMA's track record over the last several decades. There was so much waste, fraud, and abuse, and not help, especially for individuals like that went through North Carolina and Florida when they were hit with hurricanes, claims that haven't been paid for 20 years. What is different about Texas is that FEMA operated how President Trump wanted it to operate. He wanted me on the ground immediately making decisions, pre-deployed dollars. It's the fastest in history that FEMA has ever responded to a disaster. And I'm very proud of the fact that we didn't go there and manage it. We went there and allowed the local officials to manage it, to run it. The state did a fantastic job. We're there to support and give them what resources they need.
Okay, I want to give you a chance to respond to Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat, who said this on X. He says, the floods ripped through Texas on July 4th. On July 5th, FEMA received 3,000 calls from survivors. Only 1% went unanswered. That night, he says Trump and Noem fired the people who answered the calls. So on July 6th, FEMA received 2,363 calls. 65% went unanswered. July 7th, 85% went unanswered. He ended by saying sick. Were people fired who could have been helping at the time?
It's an absolute lie. And that's what I think is so disingenuous and horrible about the situation. Nobody was fired. No contracts were ended. Everybody was there answering calls and doing all they could to help the people of Texas. So the fact that Democrats are politicizing this while people are still looking for their babies, they're still looking for their family members, I think is absolutely despicable. And the American people just, I think, need to know the truth of what they're doing and how they're taking advantage of this situation to help themselves politically. It's a disservice not just to the people of Texas and these families that are going through grief right now. It's a disservice to our country.
So let's talk through ICE, because that's obviously the other big story that's under your purview as well. So a federal judge issued a temporary restraining order against a lot of the ICE operations that have been carried out in Southern California just a couple of days ago. But in his order, he said this: defendants can't rely solely on the factors below, alone, or in combination to form reasonable suspicion for a detentive stop, except as permitted by law. He says apparent race or ethnicity, speaking Spanish or speaking English with an accent, presence at a particular location like a bus stop, a car wash, a tow yard, a day labor pickup site, agricultural site, etc., or the type of work that one does. Now, the way that the LA mayor, Karen Bass, who celebrated this ruling, described it, she says this administration has been masked men grabbing people off the street, chasing working people through parking lots, and marching through children's summer camps. So what do you do with this ruling? Does it go to the Ninth Circuit? Do you do an emergency appeal to SCOTUS?
Well, this federal judge's ruling is ridiculous. We never ran our operations that way. We always built our operations, our investigations on casework, on knowing individuals that we needed to target because they were criminals, because they had conducted violent crimes against individuals in their communities or had overstayed their orders, had violated federal laws. And that is always how this is done. It's been done exactly how law enforcement has operated for many years in this country. And ICE is out there making sure we get the worst of the worst off the streets. So this judge made a decision that we will appeal. And we will win because he's wrong. We've never targeted individuals based on those qualifications that he laid out. And again, we've seen this across the country over and over and over again, where judges are getting political. It's not their job. I hope they can bring some dignity back to the bench, because we certainly are lacking it now for many of these federal judges.
So to the point that you're going after the worst of the worst, you've got critics out there who are saying you are getting gardeners, you're getting hotel workers, you're going after people that have decades of roots within a particular community. And that I think it was Congressman Garcia who said 60% of the people who are being rounded up have no conviction or run in with the law at all.
That's false. Absolutely false. In fact, 70% of the people that we have encountered, or the 300,000 people that we have gone out and detained, have convictions. They have charges against them. And many of them are violent or child pedophiles or sex traffickers or drug traffickers or assault, murder, rape. These are the individuals. Over 70% of them have been convicted, or they have charges pending against them because of the investigative work that has been done by our law enforcement officers. So it's simply not true. And what I would encourage everybody is that if they're concerned about being in this country illegally, go home. Go home. I have traveled to 10 different countries and worked with their governments from these countries where they come from, and said, when they come home, would you start programs for them to be welcomed back to their own country? We will buy their plane ticket. We will help them financially when they land. But many of these countries, Guatemala, Honduras, Panama, many of them are setting up programs so that when their people come home, they can get a loan for a house. They can get trained for a skill set to get a job. Their children can get scholarships. So now they have a very different situation in their home countries. And if they are concerned about being in the United States illegally, go home, self-deport, and then you get the opportunity to come back and do it the right way.
I want to ask you quickly about something that broke in the Washington Post overnight. They said that there is now a memo from the acting ICE director that piggybacks off of something that you had in a memo as well, that people can be deported to third-party countries without assurance that there is not going to be abuse or trouble for them when they get there. Some of these cases in as little as 6 hours notice. Do you think that's going to withstand legal scrutiny as far as providing some type of due process for people to challenge that?
Well, this is the same operation that we've had in the past, is that people can go to third countries. Many times, if other countries aren't receiving their own citizens, other countries have agreed that they would take them in and they would provide hospitality, and they would provide housing for them and take care of them until their home country would receive them. And so that's what this memo is confirming. And that's all been negotiated with that country through the State Department, and something that we have been able to utilize. So that memo is incredibly important to make sure we get these worst of the worst out of our country. Remember, if their home country is not taking them, they're not taking them for a reason, because they're dangerous criminals, they're gang members, they're terrorists, and they don't want them back. And so that is why we're so set on getting them separated from the American people so our streets can be safer, and to make sure that they are brought to consequences and to bear until their country will receive them.
Madam Secretary, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Thank you, Shannon.
I went on Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to.
That's I just listen. Everything, we just need the truth. That's all I care about is the damn truth.
Good afternoon, Tampa. For those of you who might not know who I am, my name is Congresswoman Ana Paulina Luna, and I have the joy, thank you, I have the joy and privilege of representing Florida's
Yeah, we have
13th
illegals
congressional
everywhere.
district in Pinellas County.
And they've been here for a long time.
Thank you, thank you. But you know, standing here today, when I
I
initially
agree,
started
Chloe.
out, I never envisioned that I would have a career in
You've
politics.
been here for like 2 decades.
I did not
If you're
come
here
from a
illegal,
particularly
you're
political
illegal.
family. I was born to a very young single mom. My dad was in and out of jail. By the time I had been maybe around 10 years old, I'd walked into an armed robbery. I had a cousin that was murdered. I'd attended multiple high schools, one of which there was a gang shooting on campus. And for all argument's sakes, according to statistics, I probably should have been a high school dropout, teen mom, and on drugs. But at 19, I joined the military, which truly was the best decision of my life. It's where I met my husband, Andy. And it's where I was, thank you. And it's where I was able to put myself through college. Eventually, I ended up taking the MCAT twice and had this goal and objective of becoming a military physician. But it was during my gap year when I was volunteering as a counter-trafficking activist that I really had my turning point moment. You see, prior to 2016, then candidate Trump was talking about the correlation with an open border and human trafficking. And I think most people will agree that open borders hurts people on both sides. Here I was, a female Hispanic veteran, granddaughter of immigrants, and I argued that it wasn't racist or xenophobic to want border security, yet I was called a race traitor. They would actually always make fun of me and call me a coconut. It means that you're brown on the outside or white on the inside, of which I would always respond, well, I'm more like a vanilla wafer, and that seemed to really tick them off. But in my opinion, if you're given a position of power or a platform and you don't speak out against injustices, you're just as complicit as the injustice that occurred. And I noticed something. I saw that the media was lying. I kept seeing these images of women and children, yet the very same media outlets weren't talking about the rape, the trafficking, whether it was labor for sexual purposes that was taking place. I made a video like any good millennial will do, and it went pretty viral, talking about why I believed in border security and why I supported President Trump. And eventually I was invited to an event called the Young Women's Leadership Summit, which if you've been there today, shout out to all the women in the audience. It was at that event I realized I wasn't the only one. And shortly thereafter, I kid you not, one day before I was supposed to go to medical school, Charlie Kirk calls me and says, "Hi, Anna, my name's Charlie Kirk, and I'd like to offer you the job as the National Hispanic Outreach Director for Turning Point USA." So I literally, thank you. I had 24 hours to decide what I was going to do. Was I going to go down one path, which was medicine, or was I going to go down a very different path that seemed like I was being pushed in the direction of politics? And after thinking about it and talking to one of my mentors, I realized that I could help people in a way that I probably could have never dreamed of through medicine, as that was through legislation. The impact and the reach I would be able to have, I could actually potentially bring the change and be the change that I wanted to see happen in this country. So in 2020, I decided to run for office. And in 2020, I was not successful, but when you fail, you try again, and you will be successful, I promise you that. Everyone remembers that BLM was a summer of love, and I promise you, I'm not just telling you this to bore you, I'm not just telling you this to make you feel bad about the life and circumstances which I was born into, but this all correlates, because when you're in your biggest struggles, I do believe it's God putting you there, preparing you for something. In 2022, despite being outspent $12 million to one, having my own party back a pedophile defense attorney against me, I won my election.
Good for her.
And it was a massive learning curve. You would think that when you go to Congress that they send you there and they want to teach you how to legislate and they want to teach you how to put forward and do the right thing, but they don't. They want you to go up there, go to the lobbyist parties, they want to dine you, but they don't actually want you to advocate and do what you promised to do on the campaign trail. So I read the rule manual. It's crazy what happens when you read books. Read it multiple times, in fact. And shortly after getting elected, I had this egregious hit piece come out from the Washington Post. Just real quick, how do we feel about the Washington Post? Now, I told you a little bit earlier about the background in which I came from, and this hit piece tried to discredit everything about my life. They tried to say that I was a registered Democrat in the state of Washington, of which they had to retract because that's provably false. They actually were able to access my military records as a sitting member of Congress, contact my old supervisors trying to dig up dirt on me. They reached out to my mom and asked for proof of death that my grandmother passed away HIV positive. They even went as far as saying that I made up my father's incarceration record. Little did they know that I had receipts for all of that, but they didn't want to print the truth because people like me on the left, we're not supposed to exist. We're supposed to be Democrats, we're supposed to be leftists, and we're supposed to embrace, especially if you're Hispanic, we are supposed to embrace open borders. They want us to pretend that all Hispanics are legal and say nothing about labor trafficking or child trafficking affecting our communities. And I'm not going to be silent on that matter. Had that article not come out, had I not have the facts to back me, Time magazine would never investigate it. And even though their hit piece was meant to destroy me, it actually ended up empowering me. In fact, Time magazine named me as the next 100 most influential people in the world next to JD Vance. In that same congressional cycle, so in the 118th Congress, I was the member of Congress that censured Adam Schiff for his hoax in the Russia collusion and going after President Donald Trump. And I was also the member that led the fight against Merrick Garland, a corrupt attorney general who protected Joe Biden in his cognitive decline, and 4 Republicans voted against holding Merrick Garland in inherent contempt. It just goes to prove the corruption that we have within our own party that needs to be flushed. Drain the swamp indeed, and the swamp is real, I promise you that. In 2024, because of my work and efforts in the previous Congress, I was charged with a task force to investigate some of the most grisly crimes in U.S. history, starting out with the assassination of John F. Kennedy. What I can tell you, and I would say that this model of transparency in the declassification of the JFK records is literally what they should be doing with Jeffrey Epstein. The administration released tens of thousands of documents, and I will say credit due where it's deserved. The CIA director, Radcliffe, was the only CIA director in U.S. history who was able to release something called the Joe Neady's files. What this file proved, and it had been hidden for over 60 years, was without a doubt, and this is not my analysis, this is not my opinion, this is based on evidence that we have backings on. Without a doubt, the CIA engaged in a cover-up of the JFK assassination. The CIA lied to Congress. Joe Neady's, who was a CIA operative, did indeed have contact and was observing Lee Harvey Oswald, who in my opinion was a patsy and cover for multiple shooters in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. If you would have said that last year, a couple years ago, they would have called you a conspiracy theorist. Yet every single person in this room knows conspiracy theory is only a matter of time before it's proven correct. See, for most members of Congress, their job is just to vote. But for me, it's far much more than that. It is to weed out the systemic corruption infecting the cancer on this country. And the only way that you can do it, you don't make peace with evil, you don't make peace with corruption, you destroy it. Which brings me to my next thing. These LA riots, these anti-ICE riots. When I saw those, I looked at this from an activist perspective. Who's funding these riots? Where are they coming from? Right? Follow the money trail. Now, credit due where it's deserved, because I don't believe that this woman deserves enough credit, but there are 2 people that actually helped flush out these connections on the financial ties. The first one is an individual by the name of Data Republican. Her name's Jenica on X. And the other person who I think probably might be here today is Laura Loomer. Now I want to tell you what I learned. And when we were able to discover some of the work of these citizen journalists, we were able to actually send out letters requesting testimony, and I'll get to that in a second, to an individual by the name of Neville Singham. Now, when you look at Neville Singham's background, he's a billionaire Marxist who was made a billionaire by taking money from the Communist Chinese Party. The money then transferred from the CCP to an organization called the Party for Socialism and Liberation, of which then turned around and organized these anti-ICE riots. But why all of a sudden Mexican flags? Do you guys remember the Summer of Love and these mostly peaceful riots? They were BLM flags. In fact, the Democrat Party used a dead black man by the name of George Floyd to fundraise for their 2020 election, and no one wants to talk about that. The main difference between that and then is nothing, just a different flag. And in fact, they're doing the same thing. They're using the guise of targeting people based on race, social, economic class, changing the flags, fundraising off of it, and using it for political talking points. It's not really about immigrants. It's not really about protecting innocent people. It's not about women and children. And as you saw on some of these farm raids that just took place yesterday in California, our own government was able to free multiple children that were being hired to work on these, not even hired, they were being forced to work on these farms. And I think everyone in this room will agree that child labor and exploitation is unacceptable in a free country. Now, what I will say is there's a really good movie. Who's seen the movie Kingdom of Heaven? Okay, if you guys haven't seen that movie, you really need to watch it. It's a great movie. But there's a quote in that movie, and it really resonates with me. It says, "Your soul is yours keeping alone. Even those who presume to play you be kings or men of power. When you stand before God, you cannot say, 'But I was told by others to do thus, for their virtue was not convenient at the time.' This will not suffice. Remember that." It means that every single person here has a choice to do the right thing. It doesn't matter what position you're at, but if you're in a position of power and you choose to not do the right thing, watch out. See, this party is no longer our grandfather's GOP. We've changed, and I think that that's evident. We are the People's Party. We value truth and understand that only through transparency can that be accomplished through trust. We defend the Second Amendment. We understand that children are a blessing, and the backbone of a strong country is the nuclear family. We understand that forever wars only hurt us, and that it is only truly accomplished with peace through strength. We embrace the famous words of one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. It is your responsibility and obligation to stay in the fight, to rise to the occasion and be our next generation of leaders and fighters. Thank you. I'm not the only one that needs you. This country needs you. And I can tell you that based on what I've seen in Washington, D.C., I can promise you I'm not going to be there in the next 20 years. I don't want to. It's corrupt, and we need your help to truly drain the swamp. Together, we will keep this country great. Turning Points just informed me too that I have a couple minutes to take some questions from the crowd, so I'm going to be opening it up to you guys in a minute. But I do want to say this. I didn't do this job because it was convenient. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's incredibly hard. It's a big sacrifice for the family, but I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. Because right now we need young leaders who will speak the truth, sometimes calling out our own party. If we don't have your voice, we will lose this country. And you're seeing that with some of the elections taking place around this country. Now, everyone says every election is truly important, but when you see them electing open communists, when you see money coming in from the Communist Chinese Party, when you see systemic government corruption, I'm telling you right now, we need your voice to fight it. God bless all of you. Thank you so much for being here today. God bless the state of Florida, and God bless this great American country.
Wow.
Now, if you guys can please line up here, I'll take some questions from the audience. Right up here, find a microphone, and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, I'm not going to wait for her questioning and stuff, but because there's some news going on in Texas that I would like to check out, and some more breaking news. I guess they're getting more rain in Texas, heavy rain in Texas.
We have some breaking news to get to on this
that
Sunday.
doesn't
Take a
look
look
normal.
at the screen and a live image that we have from our XRAD weather system.
come
What
on.
appears to be a strong storm moving through central parts of Texas. You can see there on your screen Kerrville,
Oh, this does
which has
not
been a
look
focus the
normal.
past week, in fact, given those deadly floods that happened just last week. And we are
Lord.
getting word now that a new flash flood warning is underway in Kerr County. I want to bring up this a statement that we have from emergency officials down there on the ground. This was posted to their Facebook, and according to the Kerr County Sheriff's Office, quote, the U.S. National Weather Service, Austin, San Antonio, Texas, a flash flood warning is in effect for our area until 11:30 a.m. Central Time. This is a dangerous and life-threatening situation. Do not attempt to travel unless you are fleeing an area subject to flooding or under an evacuation order. So again, we are following this very closely. The risks for more of this flash flooding is still prevalent within the last several days as we are seeing more of those storm systems roll through that part of the state. And I want to give you this live image that we do have down there in Kerrville, where you can really see a lot of the weather conditions changing from throughout the day today. It is looking very hazy out there. It's looking like a lot of rain is falling in that area, but out in the distance, you can see that cars are driving there on the road. So we just want to warn you that the National Weather Service has issued a flash flood warning. It's in effect in that area until 11:30 a.m. Central Time. So at least for a couple more hours. It is a dangerous and life-threatening situation. And it's really been made that much more complicated because of all the search and recovery efforts that do continue in that area because of those deadly floods that hit this part of the state just last week. That death toll being about 128 people so far, several of them being children that were really caught when those flash floods just went rampant there on several campsites, including Camp Mystic, which is that Christian girls' summer camp that is really held by the Guadalupe riverbed in that area every summer. I want to put up this also a post courtesy of the meteorologist down at Fox 4 in Dallas. This is Dan Henry. Take a look in which he says this, 8:45 a.m. So that's local time there about 6 minutes ago. Saying, quote, it's not the same amount of rain that caused the flooding last week, but it's heavy rain that's not needed in Kerr County with everyone working near the Guadalupe. Sadly, there is a flash flood warning this morning with another couple of inches of rain with this complex. So back out live to the image that we have over in Kerr County as we are following these developments very closely here on Live Now from Fox. We are in talks with our stations and our partners down in Texas, including Fox 4 in Dallas, Fox 26 in Houston, and Fox 7 in Austin. They have really that on the ground perspective, and we continue to have this live image out in Kerrville. Just last week, about every day, we heard from emergency management officials providing those updates, and they had continued to give warnings that more severe weather was on the way for this weekend there in Kerr County. It's something that we do see during these summer months. So again, just wanted to bring you all of those updates here. It is a breaking news story, a developing story that we will continue to follow. But the National Weather Service officially they're issuing a flash flood warning that will stay in effect until 11:30 a.m. Central Time. And they went on to say it is a dangerous and life-threatening situation. The Kerr County Sheriff's Office saying do not attempt to travel unless you are fleeing an area subject to flooding or are under an evacuation order.
Wow. That's the weather's acting a little wild, and it's only I don't know, it's only gonna get worse in time. Weather's very unpredictable, especially when it's being manipulated not only here, but on the other side of the world. China manipulates the weather, Russia manipulates the weather, like Iran, all these countries manipulate the weather. And they do some kind of form of cloud seeding where they drop in these mixtures into the upper atmosphere and up in the clouds, and they stimulate the atmosphere to be able to release more of water, like rainfall in certain locations and so forth. And they were spraying in Texas and around that area of Kerr County, like 2 days before the incident happened. And there was video showing like blue rain, like the water that was being caught by the tarp. It was a blue tarp, right? So you would think, okay, the water you can see through the tarp, and you'll see it's a tarp. But you see the rain now is blue, and when he moved the tarp, you can see the water move, and it's blue. The water had chemicals in it, and everything's done for a reason, right? And you want to know what my mind goes to, because I'm a psychic medium empath. Damn it, I'm just doing the news because I'm fucking bored. And I pick up the energy from the news, and then I tell you what I feel about the story. But what they're doing is disgusting, for one. Two, what has been in the news lately? And we're not talking about like constantly on the news, but there's been spigots of news of certain things, and it's called rare earth. And China is a big, like, they mine for rare earths. I actually showed a story last night about it, and the certain areas has this rare earth. Guess where they're usually having this high volume of rare earths? Near the mountain terrain, streams, and to valley areas. Like, those areas have high amounts of rare earth. And usually these storms that come through, they're so awkwardly, like, where it happens and where these rare earths are at. I'm not saying anything, but could the weather be manipulated to hit these areas to remove the people from these areas, and clear out the areas, and start mining for rare earths? I mean, that's the future, is the rare earths, because our earth, man, it provides so much, right? And then you wonder how the hell the humanity found out that rare earths could, like, be like what the future, what is going to be for the future, because rare earths, you could do so much. Oh my goodness, so much. And especially like batteries, and like your cell phones and your watches and everything, almost everything runs on rare earths. And it's like the magnets from it too. Your television has magnets. It's a complex way, but the way of the future right now is rare earths. That's why the United States made a huge deal with Ukraine for the rare earths, and also made a deal with China for the rare earths. And that's not the only partners we're looking into. There's a lot more that the U.S. wants, because the U.S. wants to dominate in that market, and they are building like mega factories here in the United States. They're bringing back the iPhone. Like, Apple is coming back to the United States. For a very long time, they were in China, and they looked at their options and came to a realization that it'll be, for the long run, it'll be cheaper to produce out of the United States. And bringing those corporations and businesses back here to America will also help Americans, like, with more jobs, more opportunity, better quality of technology. All our information that we put on these devices can be held here in America and not in China. Yeah, all our phones are pretty much tainted, and a lot of the information that you have in your phones is being sent to China. It's just what it is. That's how out of control it is, and that's what the United States wants to do, is bring these businesses back here, so that way that information stays here and it's not sent over there. And China reaped a lot of benefit from decades upon decades and decades and decades of taking advantage of the Americans. And once the corporations from here left and seeked for cheaper labor and mass production of items, look at the results. Being cheap didn't really pay off, especially in China. That's why all these corporations now and all those factories are trying to get the hell out of there and trying to go to other places like Indonesia, or going to India, or coming back to the United States. And it's wild. It's wild times. Let me see. I think I have another story. Let me find it. Give me 1 second. Because there's news always developing. It develops by the hour. I guess the Houthis are still going after the ships in the Red Sea. These Houthis are crazy. Let me see. Yeah, there's more floods going on. Let's check this out here. Let's check out the story. Let me just open it up and set it up. Give me 1 second. All right, let's open this bigger. Let's fix it over here. It's always a process when I start a story, so.
Live with Fox Weather's Katie Byrne. And Katie, from what we understand, the rain rates there are over an inch per hour. It must be pouring where you're at right now.
Michael, the rain started and it came down so strong. We had police officers from Kerrville Police coming over to where media was set up along the river, asking people to leave the area. We knew that they pulled any of the search teams in the water out about a half hour before that. We all had our phones go off with alerts letting people know that they are concerned about this river, the Guadalupe, hitting flood stage. And we've been watching the river just rise at this point, which is just tragic considering the catastrophic flooding that just hit this area a little over a week ago. You can see that water is moving pretty quickly downstream as we see this heavy rain continue to come down. And I was just up here speaking with a volunteer searcher who's been here since the beginning. He's from East Texas. This is just something that he does. He shows up at scenes like this and just helps out with the search. And he said everything as far as volunteer searches are on hold right now. And he was talking about just how fast this water is rising. He said there's a chance, that the more localized special search and rescue task force teams could be attempting to use airboats and things like that at some point today. But as far as right now, his teams were pulled from all search efforts. And it just breaks your heart. He said all they want to do is be out there, and anything
that's crazy
like this is just a setback for them, as they're still trying to find more than 170 missing people in this community. Not only that, but I mean, everyone who lives here, just having this type of rain, having your phone go off with the flash flood warnings that we got, it's just a reminder of the scary, terrifying moments that these people just lived through a little over a week ago. Many of them talking about how they were staying in RVs or camp cabins, houses along the water when it rose 26 feet in 45 minutes last week. Some parts of the hill country picked up a summer's worth of rain in a day from the amount of water that we saw. And people talk about just the terrifying moments of watching those houses, RVs, people washing down the river, and just this helpless feeling of knowing there was nothing they could do. People, I think, are still processing a lot of what's happened, starting to hear from survivors saying that they finally are maybe getting some sleep in the last couple of days. And then to have something like this happen on the ground, it's just devastating for this community that just wants to be able to reunite all of those missing souls with their families.
Yeah, and Katie, we can read numbers all we want, but it's that firsthand experience that you have been seeing. I mean, when I was down there, boots on the ground with Bain as well, the river was nowhere near that level. And it kind of took me aback when you're standing next to it, how high it seems like it's risen. Can you provide maybe some context to folks who can't put the numbers to the flooding? What have you experienced?
Well, I can tell you that there are streets that are flooded right now from the rain that we're getting, because we started out about 4 miles away in a different part of Kerrville along the Guadalupe River, where a memorial site has been set up. People have been putting up wooden crosses, some of them little crosses, to represent the young lives lost in this. And while we were there, we watched the Guadalupe really rising, and that's when police came over and had people leave that area. And pretty quickly thereafter, we saw the street right near that part of the river flood out, and there were really not a lot of cars around. We felt unsafe. We wanted to get to higher ground as well, so we drove from there about 4 miles to more of the downtown Kerrville area, where there's another memorial set up with flowers, people showing up with flowers to put next to the photos of all of these missing people. And you look at what they're dealing with today, just getting to this area, I didn't encounter a street that didn't have some type of flooding on the way over 4 miles away. And that was after maybe a half hour of consistent rain. It hadn't been raining that long just yet. You mentioned that we picked up quite a lot of it in just a little amount of time, and it hasn't let up just yet. We know that the weather that we're getting now has already had some big impacts north of us, where we're still learning about what people are dealing with there as far as flooding goes. But any kind of rain, I think, in this community, especially heavy downpours like this, just so soon after the tragedy that they're dealing with, it's really too much to bear for these people.
And Katie, I know that, a code red was just issued for Kerrville, Texas. I'm curious, we have like 30 seconds left. Are evacuations underway? Is that a part of this code red?
Haven't heard about evacuations, but this code red wasn't sent out last week. So this, I think, was something the county wanted to make sure they did this time, to warn people of that upgraded risk of flooding that we were looking at. And it came through when people were really going to bed last night.
Absolutely. Fox Weather's Katie Byrne for us live in Kerrville. We'll, of course, check back in with you in just a bit.
That's wild. They're back into a weather event over there that's going to be bringing a lot of craziness. Let me check out this weather here for the tropics. That's going to possibly affect a lot of people in the southeast.
And monitoring a large area in the northern Gulf, expected to bring with it some heavy rain to Florida and possibly tropical development. But that's not all for the Atlantic. We're also tracking multiple tropical waves, indicating that the next big storm system perhaps not too far away. We want to check in live with Fox Weather hurricane specialist Brian Norcross, joining us live this morning with all of his insights. I appreciate it every single time you're on. Brian, good morning to you. Your latest thoughts on what the National Hurricane Center is thinking toward the northern Gulf of America.
Hey, good morning, Michael, and good morning, everyone. Yes, we're watching the northern part of the Gulf. The computer models indicate a slight chance of some kind of development there, a very, very good chance of very heavy rain over Florida. So those two things don't necessarily go together, that you need some kind of developed tropical system to get the heavy rain. And the odds of it turning into at least a tropical depression are only 20% at this point, which coincides with the various computer models, and there is no cohesive track or anything else about them. It's kind of a scattered approach. It's somewhere up in there. There's a chance of at least a tropical depression developing.
Look at that.
This is
There's a system right
we're
there.
talking about. It's
just
really in the
that
middle
doesn't look
of
good.
the atmosphere now. It's not at the surface like you would normally track a low pressure system at this point.
It's
We're
actually
going to go through what the models are showing about this. What it started out as there you see the cluster off of the Carolinas. It started related to a front. Now, the main low pressure system was way up here.
It's going to break off to little lows.
And moving away from shore. And there you see all the bad weather with that. And then the front extended down, and this is the tail end of that front. And when we look here, we can kind of make out a dip right in there like that. And that dip is an indication of low pressure kind of trying to develop in this location right there. So that's what we're going to track. But as I said, the surface thing, the low pressure at the surface that we would normally track, is way up here and it's moving away. And this is separating off, kind of breaking off down here. And the only thing we really have to track right now is in the middle levels of the atmosphere. So let's do that. We put the X there where the kind of center of sort of rotation is, the middle of the disturbance there. And you can see there's a cluster of moisture. The dark green, that's where the strongest moisture is. And then there's high pressure here off to the west. So here's how it's going to evolve. And just watch up here and you'll see the time. We start today. Now we're going to go through today and then through tomorrow, and watch as this thing kind of sinks to the south toward Florida, and look where the moisture ends up here. So we have this big pool of moisture right over the peninsula part of Florida. The forecast is for a 2 out of 4 chance of excessive rainfall in the southern 2/3 of the peninsula. We'll look at that in more detail in a second. But in any case, starting tomorrow, excessive rainfall will likely fall in Florida in some areas. And look, this is not going to move quickly as it moves on across the peninsula, ends up in the Gulf of America here. And here you see the flow in the tropical flow in, and we still end up with this big pool of moisture here, a lot of over Florida. And this is where we have some chance in that Tuesday to Wednesday time frame that some kind of low pressure spins up here. There's no indication it would ever get very strong, but it might just even gather more moisture. So we have the potential for flash flooding and other issues with heavy rain. So here we are Wednesday morning. Now watch as we go forward in time. We get to Thursday. It ends up somewhere up on the Gulf Coast. And look at the tremendous amount of moisture here. The Gulf Coast and Florida starts to dry out on Thursday. So pulling all this tropical moisture with it. So essentially what's happening is the disturbance breaks off from the old front and then starts gathering moisture, moves across Florida, and we get at least 2 days of very heavy rain, probably well into Wednesday as well across the peninsula. So here's what the current projection is for rain. And I say current because this thing is all very developing, very much in developing stages now. So you can see where the yellows are, kind of the lower 2/3 of the peninsula, especially the bottom half of the peninsula, including Southeast Florida, Southwest Florida, and just south of the I-4 corridor there for very heavy rain. Some isolated areas up to 6 inches is the current forecast. And then moving west as we go through the week, and no doubt those forecasts will expand Thursday into Friday and so forth. This forecast only taking you through Thursday. So we'll watch this develop. Again, very little concern to no concern for something strong, but something very wet is very, very likely here with this system. All right, out in the Atlantic, we still have the dust coming in surges here, and it comes in surges related to tropical waves, tropical disturbances moving off.
It's concerning
Africa.
here.
So that's
this one right here.
Continue. We get everyone comes, it brings another surge on across the
area
into the Caribbean, and with the cooler waters out
back here
in the Atlantic over by
very
Africa,
interesting.
this is just going to slow down anything developing. So nothing is expected to develop in the tropics. If something develops,
just gotta
it's
watch
up here
this one
related
here.
to this old front up in here, as we were talking about. But the tropics still look shut down for the foreseeable future, at least until
3 days from now.
month, it looks like.
The atmosphere
And
could
even
change.
then, the long range signals we have are not for anything obvious in terms of development. Just we might get a little more conducive general atmospheric pattern about that time. But normally August is when tropical season starts up, and this looks like it's going to be kind of one of those more average seasons as opposed to the seasons we've seen lately. Guys?
Yeah, Brian, thanks for that. As you just mentioned, I feel like August is really the time frame that a lot of folks really zone in on what's going to be going on in the tropical Atlantic. So certainly a lot to look forward to there as we near the end of July and into early August. Fox Weather Hurricane Specialist Brian Norcross. Brian, as always, thank you for your insight. We appreciate that.
That's another system possibly heading towards Florida and beyond. It's going to be a weird weather pattern this year. A lot of these are like developing off of fronts that are going through the United States, because you got to understand this energy that's coming downwards from the United States, and a lot of areas got hit by tornadoes and heavy rains and flooding rains, and all that energy has, like, it moves down to the Atlantic, and then they start gathering some energy because there's so much warm water and like evaporation off of that area of the Atlantic that can help these storms regenerate again and then start forming its own little system and own little low, and then it becomes a storm, and then possibly tropical storm, hurricane force, and cause more issues. But it's sad and sucks that Texas is getting more rain on top of what they have, like what they have had. It's a weird pattern in Texas, like extremely weird. Yeah, I'm just speechless because, like, you would think these systems will move off and they can start getting and looking for these the bodies, because they saying, oh, they still have 170 missing still, and I'm like, probably more. It's a lot more. I can feel like the energy is like a lot more people are dead and not with us anymore. It's just sad times right now. It's we have to deal with this, Let me see this this is probably gonna be the last one. It's about alligator Alcatraz. So let me set it up and let's watch this quick little report. It's about 2 minutes long, and then I can sign off here for the day.
I do want to.
Give me 1 sec so I can set her up. It always takes a moment to set these videos up for us to enjoy. Okay, there we go.
I do want to turn to what is going on in Florida, and that is what the administration, what you call alligator Alcatraz, was visited by Democratic members of Congress yesterday. They were given limited access, and this, of course, is a new detention facility set up by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. What these Congress people described was sweltering heat, bug infestations, meager meals. They say they heard detainees crying out for help. The wife of one man detained there said he's not been given access to a lawyer. He's been in detention for about 2 weeks. Is that acceptable to you? And is that what you're seeing when you go?
I have not been there yet, and I doubt a lot of that's factual. I mean, bottom line is, from the day one, I've been doing this job since 1984. Detainees complain about the conditions of detention. And I said this many times, you can simply go to ice.gov and look at the detention standards ICE has. They have the highest detention standards in the industry. But these same congressmen are complaining about alligator Alcatraz. You didn't see them complaining about, under the Biden administration, people being held in a Border Patrol parking lot surrounded by a fence in the sweltering heat. Not a word. You didn't hear a word about 500,000 children being trafficked in the country and them not being able to locate 300,000. President Trump, this administration, is finding thousands of those children. So, they have a lot of anger under President Trump on how we're doing business, and they ignored 4 years of open borders, historic migrant death, historic Americans dying from fentanyl, historic numbers of women and children being sex trafficked, historic number of people on terrorist watch lists coming across the border. Silence, because they're complicit because they didn't take the administration on and ask them to secure the border. You can't have strong national security in this country if you don't have border security. We got to know who's coming and what's coming and where it's coming. But instead, they kept silent and they kept feeding the American people, we have a secure border, and we did not.
Okay. Mr. Homan, I know you have to go to catch a plane. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I appreciate it.
That's wild.
Thank you for having me, Dana.
It's just wild. Everything that's going on like with these Democrats and how they fight and they fight for the wrong causes. I feel like there's other things that they could be fighting for that makes a lot more sense. Like they could have jumped on this Epstein thing, right? They could have been like, yeah, let's release the list, everybody list, right? No, because it implements them too. It implements the Democratic Party, and it's not only the people like that. There's people in Washington that was a part of all this craziness between the Pizzagate and the Lolita Express. Yeah, and incriminating positions and incriminating videos that would put I mean Washington, oof, that would be the easiest way to drain the swamp. Release the information, release that list of all those individuals that were caught up in that mess. Like that's the true that's the problem right there. The transparency is not so transparent in this administration as of now, and I feel like this is the biggest roadblock this administration has come to since taking over 6 months ago. This is like a big bump, and they're trying to find their ways. Like, which direction are we going? I don't know. And then you have these two in this like fighting with you. You got Pat Bondi on one side, and you got Kash Patel and Bongino on the other side, and they're like, and Trump is in the middle, and they're not getting anywhere because this is all a distraction. That's what it is. It's all distraction. A lot of the information, it's already been buried. It's already hidden. You're not going to find it. That's why the DOJ is acting the way they are and the FBI is acting the way they are. It's because all that information it's already been buried. So they're going to gaslight us like they did with the Cuban Missile Crisis that was in the 60s with John F. Kennedy and him negotiating and so forth. And they almost had a false flag event where a scout plane was taken down and crashed in the straits there between Cuba and the United States. And it could have developed into something big, but they just blew by that. And Trump, actually at that time, John F. Kennedy, he worked around that and didn't like react it like others would have thought he would have. And he gave it time. And I think that was the biggest problem because they really wanted to start this war. And since they didn't start this war that should have happened in the 60s, they ended up they take him out. They take him out in Texas. They take him out, and yeah, the rest is history. But yeah, you guys got to look into what happened in the 60s because all the information is so suppressed. It's suppressed, and it possibly, they're talking about releasing the files and this and that. They're not going to release all the files. It's not for us to really like. It's like in their minds there that's controlling the narrative. They're like, it's not in their minds to be snooping into this stuff. Like we gave them what they want and some of the stuff, but they're not going to get all of it. You're only going to get a snippet, and the rest they're going to hold back. It's just it's national security, and it implements too many agencies from around the world. It's not just the United States. That's all I gotta say before YouTube gets to they get to, how can I say, they get their pennies in a bunch and then they get all frizzy about it. YouTube's very sensitive, especially in certain subjects like Pizzagate and now Lolita Express and things to deal with like John F. Kennedy. And if you really deep dive on it, you'll have agencies like paying attention to you. You'll have these ABC agents like on your channel. At least give a like and subscribe, motherfuckers, if you're watching. But it is what it is. Hey, Maggie. There's Maggie. How you doing? Oh, it's nice to see you, darling. I hope you're having a good day. Yeah, let me duck because this is like a drive-by. Maggie's a gangster. Be careful. She's a gangster. She will drive by you any day you fuck with me. She go like, "Oh yeah, motherfuckers." She'll shoot you with wisdom and knowledge. And trust me, she'll knock your ass out cold. Oh, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a good day. I'm having a smoke. I'm going through the news and sharing my energy with what I see and what I hear. It's just one of those days where the world goes wild. And I just wish that they would just be transparent and just, just and the funny thing about like with the Epstein stuff, right? Like Pat Bonnie, she's slick, but she ain't Rick. She's slick, and she had these influencers show up at the White House. They met Trump and they were talking about certain stuff, and then she pulled them all into a room and she's like, I got some news and some stuff for you guys to take with you, and it's about the Epstein, and this is the first phase of Epstein. And you could probably feel the excitement of those individuals that were there, and they got a binder. And then as soon as they got the binder, they told them, all right, let's come on, there's no time to review it, but let's go outside. And when they went outside, that's when they had the photo op, and they had all of those influencers holding the binders, and they were taking pictures and stuff, and they didn't even know what the hell was in the binder until they left and they got to where they were staying, and they looked through it and there was nothing but blank. It was all blank, pretty much. It was papers, and it was all it was all black ink everywhere. They spent so much money on black ink. I cannot believe. That's just wild. Um, that's so wild. Let me see something. I gotta change something here. Let me check. Fix this here. What's today? I don't know. Let me see. Did I change it? I think I did. I don't know. Technology is so weird. I don't know why technology is acting weird, but it is what it is. Um, but the world is it's a wild place, and it's only gonna get wilder. Things are gonna get a little bit more challenging. Um, People are very complicit right now, and they have this, like, they feel safe, but you're not really like safe right now. You're in danger, and there's a lot of people that are in danger, especially high powerful people. Like, a lot of people are going to start dropping dead, and you're going to hear like certain like weird people like dropping dead. Like, I'm just seeing just the energy. I'm just saying what I feel and what I'm hearing in my head. Um, Let me see what this is here. Let me take a look at this. Maybe we can watch this together. Is this out of? But let's check out the story. It's from. It seems like a CPS. I don't know exactly where this is. It's a short story, but it's something that I would like to see together because it just crossed my news feed here. So let's set it up. Set it up. And
What you're doing is kidnapping. A federal judge in Los Angeles ordered the Trump administration to temporarily halt the indiscriminate immigration stops based on race or language. Detainees must also have the right to legal counsel. The immigration raids are sparking chaos and violent confrontations, including this one Thursday at a cannabis farm outside Los Angeles. Immigration rights attorney Noemi Ramirez.
The clients have all been very scared.
This ruling, does that ease the panic?
It eases the panic for now.
The rulings only apply to 7 Southern California counties, including Los Angeles. The Department of Homeland Security criticized the judge for, quote, undermining the will of the American people.
I don't believe that. I don't believe the American people are for the violation of people's due process or constitutional rights.
A new Gallup poll shows views on immigration shifting. The poll finds that fewer Americans, 30%, want immigration decreased compared to 55% just last year. Amid growing concerns about alleged dismal conditions at a new immigration detention center, Florida lawmakers today got their first look inside Alligator Alcatraz, a makeshift 3,000-bed facility on swampland. The tour was arranged by the state after lawmakers sued to see inside.
Under the judge's ruling, agents can no longer target immigrants at businesses like car washes without, quote, reasonable suspicion. The White House says it will challenge the order. Elise Preston, CBS News, Culver City, California.
See what I mean? Everything's just so wild. And what's going on with like ICE and all the craziness here in the United States, like
I do want to start with some of the latest news regarding immigration and all of those headlines that have been coming out the past several days. Taking a live look here over at California, because that's where I want to start.
Yeah, I know, Maggie.
We just learned that yesterday on Friday,
Hope you're doing
a
better.
federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to halt indiscriminate immigration stops and arrests in 7 California counties, including Los Angeles. Immigrant advocacy groups filing the lawsuit last week accusing the president's administration of systematically targeting brown-skinned people in Southern California during its ongoing immigration crackdown. The plaintiffs include 3 detained immigrants and 2 U.S. citizens, one of whom was held despite showing agents his identification. For the latest on all of these ICE raids that we have seen in California and across the country, let's get to this report from Fox News correspondent William Lajeunesse.
Hundreds of protesters clashed with federal immigration agents in Southern California on Thursday as ICE and Border Patrol agents conduct raids on 2 licensed marijuana farms in Ventura County, where officials found 8 unaccompanied minors, all here illegally. Agents deployed pepper balls, tear gas, and flashbangs, where they were met by demonstrators throwing rocks.
People are welcome to protest. They have their First Amendment rights, but they can't cross that line. They can't impede us from doing our job. That's a felony. They certainly can't put hands on an agent.
The scene became increasingly dangerous when one protester appeared to fire a gun at agents. The FBI now offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. California Governor Gavin Newsom responding to the incident, saying the Trump administration tactics, quote, evoke chaos, fear, and terror within our communities. This as we await a ruling by a federal judge in California that could curtail some federal immigration enforcement by the administration. However, the judge saying any ruling should not be overly broad. Quote, I think it's important for the court not to burden otherwise lawful law enforcement activities.
They want ICE to stop doing this, but if they base it on the rule of law, they're going to find out Border Patrol and ICE are doing exactly what they're going to do in accordance with law.
We are expecting that ruling later today. In Los Angeles, William Lajeunesse, Fox News.
Thank you to William Lajeunesse for that report. Now, we do know that the judge has ordered a halt to several of those operations. Let's continue this conversation even further by bringing onto the program now Elizabeth Ricci. She is an immigration attorney. Elizabeth, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for joining us so early on this Saturday. Let's start with that order from that federal judge to halt some of those operations in California. Now, what does the court have to prove in order for that halt and that pause to stay in effect? And as we heard during that report, the border czar Tom Homan saying that everything is being done in accordance with the law. So what do you make about both sides of this issue?
Well, I think that both of those comments just now were important. One of the comments was about indiscriminate searches, and the other was First Amendment rights. So it's a delicate balance because since President Trump returned to office, we've seen an incredible prioritization of immigration enforcement. But that enforcement has to be balanced with the law. So we need to make sure that searches and seizures, arrests, deportations are in compliance with the law and that they are not indiscriminate. We also need to make sure that people's First Amendment rights are honored. People have the right to protest peacefully, whether they're US citizens or not in this country. So it is a delicate balance.
And then just to get down to the points of making sure that some of those raids are conducted in accordance with the law, what needs to be established for that to happen, given the fact that these ICE agents, they do have power to be here tracking some of the illegal immigrants that they are seeing across the country?
Sure, they have wide power, especially in open places of business. An ICE agent does not need a warrant to go into a place of business that is open to the public. They would need a warrant to go behind a counter, into a kitchen, that type of thing. But that shot that you all just showed was an open field. That is much more difficult to require a warrant and a higher standard than going behind a closed door in a private business. So if they have a warrant, then it's much easier. But if they don't have a warrant, if the area is wide open, like what you're showing on your screen right now, that's different. And it's much easier for ICE to go in and search, make arrests, and put people in deportation, regardless of whether they have a warrant or not.
So there are a lot of headlines that I want to get to with you here, Elizabeth, not just those raids that are happening in California, but I want to put up this photo here, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, because we are hearing another judge, a federal judge, actually accusing the Trump administration of refusing to provide details for the deportation plans of Kilmar Abrego here. Now, what is the government required to disclose under these circumstances? Now, just for everybody watching here, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man who was deported to El Salvador, he is back here in the U.S. I do believe he is being held in Tennessee facing other charges, but kind of a mess here and a back and forth as to what's going to happen with his future.
Well, I think like what we just saw recently with Mahmoud Khalil, we're going to see a lawsuit at some point. Mr. Abrego is back in Tennessee, you are correct. And this is of course after he was deported without a warrant and had already been given protections to not be deported. He was given what's called withholding of removal because the fear was that he would suffer and be persecuted by gangs in El Salvador. So he is back and he is detained partly due to the request by his own attorneys for his safety, because the concern would be that if he were released again, he would just be re-deported. But getting to your question, the Department of Justice was told that they needed to facilitate his return from El Salvador to the United States. And the response was that he would be returned or he would leave El Salvador, but not necessarily go to the United States. He would go to a third country. He is now back in the United States in Tennessee, and he is facing charges of conspiracy to smuggle or transport undocumented immigrants and actually having transported them. But as you mentioned, the judge had some problems with that. There was double hearsay. It was completely illogical to claim that he was a gang member for many, many years when he had no criminal history whatsoever. And it was illogical to claim that he had been transporting immigrants between Maryland and Texas 3 to 4 times a week. So the government is going to need to prove their case with this conspiracy charge and the charge of transporting immigrants. Otherwise, we're going to see him be released and possibly re-deported. This is going to be a long haul for him and his family, and I think it will result in a lawsuit.
Before we move on to the next topic I'd like to discuss, Elizabeth, given these two situations that I've just presented here during this discussion, the raids in California, this issue with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and this divide that we're seeing between the federal government and many of these state and local lawmakers, have you seen cases like this in the past where there is just two completely opposite ways that both of these agencies are trying to approach the situation? Is there anything that this can be comparable to?
This is a completely unprecedented time. I have not seen anything like this before. And the whole issue here is that immigration is a federal issue to be enforced by the federal government. But because of the system, states are trying themselves. State of Florida, where I am, for example. And Florida just lost a lawsuit. They tried to enforce SB 4C, which makes it illegal to enter Florida after having entered the United States without permission, or be in Florida without having entered legally. The Supreme Court did not give a detailed opinion. They just basically upheld the previous court's ruling that that is not permissible, that it violates the federal principles of federalism. So that's the struggle, right? States' rights versus what the feds are entitled to. And because immigration is federal, states are going to continue to have an issue trying to make their own immigration laws. I give you the example of stamps or patents, for example. States cannot issue their own stamps. States cannot issue their own patents. And if a state were to try to do that, regardless of how you feel about immigration, the reasonable person would probably say the state doesn't have the authority to do that. State doesn't have the authority to enforce immigration law, but they can work in conjunction with the federal government. And that's what's going to happen to make this smoother so we see less civil unrest like we are seeing, for example, in California.
All right, this next topic that I'd like to get to here, you mentioned it a little bit briefly within the answer previous to the one that you just gave us, but Mahmoud Khalil. We just heard this week that he is suing the Trump administration for $20 million. Elizabeth, can you break down this lawsuit for us here? Mahmoud Khalil, a reminder for our audience here, he is the Colombia activist who was detained by immigration enforcement there for his participation in some of these
He causes havoc and then he wants to get paid for it? Are you crazy?
In New York. But again, he is suing the Trump administration for $20 million. Elizabeth, if you can break down this lawsuit for us, and what is the likelihood that he would win this case?
Well, the lawsuit stems around the fact that he was put into deportation for exercising his First Amendment rights. He was charged basically with being un-American and an anti-Semite, and that causes, that presents a problem for foreign policy. And there is a provision of the Immigration and Nationality Act. If you are acting adversely to foreign policy, you can be put in deportation. You can be deported without traditional protections. There is an exception to that if the Secretary of State deems that you basically have the danger to foreign policy. But the problem there is that a judge has already said that that is void for vagueness. The traditional average person doesn't know what our foreign policy efforts are because foreign policy is usually covert. So he was detained for several months. He lost 15 pounds. He was in what he claims were poor conditions. He missed the birth of his child. And he is suing for $20 million for false imprisonment, for being smeared as an anti-Semite, and for malicious prosecution. And I think he may have a good case there. The question is whether his activities rose to the level of being in support of terror and whether he knew that they were. So those are the questions that will dictate whether he's going to be successful with that lawsuit or not.
And we'll be watching out to see what happens within that lawsuit. Just one more point I'd like to get to, Elizabeth. Alligator Alcatraz, I'm sure you've also been following this very closely. It's that new immigrant detention facility established in the Florida Everglades. I want to bring up some of this footage that we have here. Alligator Alcatraz, of course, that's what it's being dubbed. But earlier this week, several Florida lawmakers actually sued Governor Ron DeSantis because he has denied access to this facility. Elizabeth, what kind of access and how much access are lawmakers required to have or entitled to have to facilities like this?
Well, I think that's the question, right? How much is allowed? And I think we can see on the federal level, the president has wide discretion, and the state, the governor has wide discretion. But traditionally, lawmakers have been allowed to visit places within their constituency. They have been allowed access.
Look at that airport.
It
Look at
is
that air. Oh my God.
politically traditionally allowed.
Big
Now,
jets to land there.
I know of no law that prohibits it, but there
big
certainly can
runway,
be
a
policy
big
against
jets
allowing
to land, and they
people
can take all
in,
these
whether
people
they're
away.
politicians in the legislature or figureheads. So I think that it's probably legal. It's just not consistent with what we have
Yeah,
done
I
in the
know,
past,
Chloe. I saw
allowing
that.
members of
I
our
did a report
legislature
earlier.
to a
Like, you guys are
facility,
getting
in this
heavy
case, a
rain
very
in
controversial one,
Texas.
that traditionally that would have been allowed. I think that the governor and the president can certainly deny access, but it is just not consistent with precedent. And I think it's appropriate to allow a lawmaker into a facility in their own constituency to inspect it and see for themselves what's happening, because lawmakers are part, obviously, of the process.
Well, Elizabeth, I hadn't seen you in a couple of weeks, so there was a lot to get to during this segment. I appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything that you would like to add before I let you go? Maybe a topic that you also have your eye on that we haven't discussed during this particular interview?
I imagine the next time we talk, it will probably be about the effort to denaturalize 50,000 people. And that is coming from a renewed effort to take citizenship away from people based on how they answered a question on their naturalization application. And that question is whether you have ever committed a crime for which you were not arrested. So depending on how you answered that question, if you naturalize, now the government is going back and looking at what you have done and said before that application. And if they feel there were a willful misrepresentation, they're making efforts again to denaturalize 50,000 people. And we're seeing that right now in the case of the mayoral candidate in New York City, who's a naturalized US citizen. And there is talk about denaturalizing him based on some comments that he had made regarding what is perceived as terrorism, basically his position on Israel. So if that is considered support of terrorism, then they could proceed with denaturalization efforts. That is very unusual, and it has to go through federal court, but we are seeing a renewed effort to do that. So I have a feeling that's what we'll be talking about next.
And we'll be having that conversation very soon, Elizabeth. Very unusual times and unprecedented times, especially when...
Big time. So let's go to another precedented times with the weather out in Texas. This is crazy.
Just Station Wilson, this Sunday morning, we are watching a developing situation affecting the Texas.
Oh, it's going to be another big flooding event.
Watching all of these counties that are highlighted in green, currently under a flash flood warning, which means that flash floods are already happening or could potentially happen here within the very near future. So this warning situation starts as far east, right along the I-35 corridor.
Oh no, this is really bad.
And
You
then
see
it
this
extends
rotation
as
right here?
far west as
It's
Sutton
rotating.
County,
This is
Crockett
just
County.
constant
So it's
rain
again
and
an
being
entire
pushed.
portion of this would be
Like,
central
this is
western
really,
Texas
really
being
bad.
affected by this
Right
flash
up here.
flood warning that extends until late this morning. Most of these don't end until around 11:30 this morning. Now, unfortunately, right around 8:15 this morning, they
not
also
good.
added Kerr County to this flash flood warning situation.
Kerr
And so that is an
County
area,
also.
obviously, that we've been covering the last couple of weeks that has already experienced so much tragedy, already hard hit by
no.
floodwaters.
Again.
Really, there's nowhere for this water to go. You're already dealing with a
no.
situation where the soil is oversaturated. So
Are
the
they
water
ever going to be
rises
able to
much
find
faster
all these
when the
missing
soil
people?
isn't
I
able
don't
to
think
absorb
so.
it.
Not
This
with
is a
all
look
this rain
at
like
just
this.
population that we're looking at that's being affected in Kerr County by this flash flood warning. And it also encompasses a portion of Gillespie County. It looks like the western portion of Gillespie is also included in this flash flood warning until 11:30 this morning. And that's where Fredericksburg is. This is part of a system that has been lingering. It's tied all the way to Oklahoma and Kansas. You have a few things going on here. Your winds are relatively light, so it's not moving very quickly, and it's just kind of stagnant. It's staying in these areas where the stability is relatively stable
at the surface, but the higher you go up in the atmosphere, we're dealing with a lot of instability. And as a result, you are dealing with these storm systems that continue to persist and really don't move very quickly. So it's dumping a lot of rain in a short amount of time right along the areas being affected. And that's why they issued the flash flood warning. Just since yesterday, initially this entire portion of the state was highlighted in yellow, a slight risk when it came to flash flooding potential. Over the last 24 hours, they increased this portion, which is the area I just showed you, where we're watching a lot of rain being dumped, to a moderate level. So we will continue to watch this closely, developing situation. Those flash flood warnings initially, when they were issued pretty early this morning, most of them ended around 8:30 or 9, and they have now extended it until 11:30. If the system doesn't clear out, which I don't see it doing by late this morning, they will extend those flash flood warnings until a later time. The entire portion of the state that's highlighted here in green has been under a flood watch since yesterday afternoon around 1 o'clock, and that extends through Sunday evening. So all of the counties we just saw were already experiencing a flash flood watch as the situation became more intense.
Yeah, Chloe,
the
you gotta be
showers moved in, the
careful.
storms
Like,
picked
this is
up,
getting
they
crazy
increased
out
that
there.
portion of the state to flash flood warnings. Let's look at the timeline, kind of seeing when this could potentially pan out. It continues to linger. So this is a look at early this afternoon.
It just stays
You
there.
still have a lot of
What's going
activity
on?
there. Finally, maybe by late this afternoon, that system starts to move east and toward the Texas coast and then finally dissipates. So as I mentioned before, developing situation, you have a number of flash
See how
flood
it's
warnings
rotating?
across the Texas Hill Country, including Kerr
Oh,
County,
that is just not
until
good. When you have
11:30
this
this
type of
morning.
rotation like
We'll
this
let you
here,
know as the situation
this is not
develops.
good.
The latest and getting
I'm just
information also
consolidating
from our
in
sister
this area
station
right
down there
here.
and continue to
And
update
this is going to be
you.
heavy,
Keep it here on
heavy, heavy
Channel 8
rain.
and
Flooding
WFAA.com
rains.
for more information.
Oh, that sucks. Oh, Texas, you guys are going to struggle for a bit more. There's so many people dead, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, but they're just playing the number game, right? But there's a lot of people missing, a lot of people that are dead, and it's so overwhelming. But we just gotta hope and pray that things get better for them, because right now it seems like it's not over yet, and it's a continuation, and it's just not good times right now. It sucks. Chloe, you gotta stay safe out there. You should be fine. You should be good. That's just super wild. But I'm gonna wrap it up because I gotta get going. I got some stuff I gotta do, and tonight I'm watching Evolution, which is WWE's female wrestling. It's Evolution 2. It's going to be in Atlanta, Georgia, and I want to see all the ladies fight and do their thing tonight. So if you're on my Discord and you want to watch, just shoot me up a message and you can watch some women's wrestling tonight. It's women's wrestling, which is so cool. I like them, like separating them, because you have the men's wrestling and then you have the women's wrestling, but when you put them together, it's like, okay, it's a good show and stuff like that, but I wish the women were separated from the men, because then you could just focus on the women's stuff and then the men's could focus on their stuff. It's interesting times. I tell you for sure, Trump is hiding the list. He doesn't want to get his friends and very, very like top people, like very important people, in trouble because of the videos that implements, like they're gonna get implemented. They're gonna be in trouble. Their fortune, all their wealth and businesses will go crashing down, and that would hurt the American economy if all the individuals were to get in trouble. It would really hurt the American industry, as far as the Hollywood stars and the music industry and all these like high power CEOs and very important people through like big companies and shell companies, oil and Electric, all these high ballers were on Epstein Island. And they have the videos, they have the tapes, they know who did it, they know who is who, and so forth. And that's why they don't want to release it, because it's just a big mountain of shit coming down the mountain. It started off little, but it's coming down bigger and bigger, and now it's like a huge big pile of shit. I guess like if you could compare, okay, the big ball of shit compared to this planet right here. Like that's the big pile of shit that's it rolled up to, and it's like it's too big to handle, too big to hold. It's getting out of control. It's just really weird, sad times that's going on. I just feel bad for the children. That's just the main issue with the children. The individuals will never get in trouble. So many, not only males, there's a lot of females too. This is not just the males. It's a lot of females, a lot of important people. I'm telling you, big like celebrities and stuff that are on video with minors, and it's disgusting. And yeah, they're like, oh, so why do you want to see pedophilia stuff? No, I don't want to see that. I want you to black that out and show the person that was involved in this stuff and implement them and get them in trouble. You know, why are you not doing your job? Why are you wasting the taxpayers' money just ringing around the bush and beating around the bush? Like you're not doing anything. You're like it's just a waste of time and money, and I'm getting pretty tired of it. But it's pouring loads. Oh Lord, it hasn't even dried up yet. Yeah, the ground is saturated. It's just be careful out there, and if you're in a flood prone area, just get the hell out of it. But be careful, because things are just gonna. This is just the beginning of like the weather as far as like Texas. I mean, you might see a hurricane this year, and it might be a powerful one, and that would really suck. And it's just like, when is it ever going to stop? Well, that's just the way it is, and it just sucks. But I got to get going. And thank you, Maggie, for stopping by. That was so unexpected, and I'm very happy to see you here, and Chloe too, and Albie, and everyone watching and rewatching. Truly appreciate you guys so much. I'll be back on tomorrow. Tonight, if something breaks out like crazy, like breaking news, like it's super big, then I'll come on, but I want to take the night and relax and watch some wrestling. So with that said, continue having a good morning, good afternoon, and good night wherever you're at. And I'll catch you on the flip side. And we'll do this again tomorrow, and we'll speak upon whatever we want to talk about. I come up with this stuff at the moment. I don't pre-plan my shows too much. It's like at that moment, what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, that's what I put on there, and then I start the show. So it's not like I plan this out like a day in advance or have any nah. I live for the moment, and we're here, and I'm out. Thank you everyone for watching. Truly appreciate it. Like I said, continue having a good day, and enjoy the last day of the weekend, and back to work. Ew, who wants to go back to work? Ugh. But enjoy your day. Peace.